And what I'd like you to talk about is, all right, I listened to this podcast, met Anna Jacob. Um, yeah, I'm going to look at what my my desirable cash exit value would be. Can you walk us through what is a real M&A timeline, and when does it make sense to really line up those advisors?
Yes, absolutely. So deals are taking longer in this market. The expectation, if you're doing a auction, which is what I would recommend to get the highest price, is typically it's about 9 months. Some deals are taking longer, but typically you're going to, and this is if you're well prepared. And by
Okay.
prepared, I mean that you have your financials and, it's readily available. If, the due diligence process is pretty intense, so you want to make sure that when people ask you for financials, that you have them readily available. And that increases your credibility, which increases your value. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and, to your point, Brenda, um, really, you don't need to get every advisor involved at the beginning. I think the first advisor you definitely want to get involved well before you receive an unsolicited offer. An offer is, what is that cash number? So
Okay.
that would be a wealth manager.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in terms of, my role as an investment banker, um, I would want to start talking to somebody a year before they're looking to get together so that I can help them figure out what are those due diligence items that you need so that when you go to market, it's very efficient, because the longer a deal goes on,
Yes.
the more things that can happen. So the process is critical. You want to make sure that you hit the market running, that you can negotiate. You don't want to keep buyers on hold. You want to create this very, very efficient process
Okay.
to get the highest price.
Mm-hmm.
So typically I would get involved about a year before, just consulting, and then getting retained when you are ready to go. Um, I also, in terms of another key advisor, I would bring in a tax expert, and that could be a CPA
Okay.
or a attorney, whatever makes most sense when we're getting ready to consider an offer.
Okay.
The minute you hit into what's called a letter of intent,
Right.
that is when you want to make sure that you have already talked to your tax advisor about what what does this mean. So for example, just very specifically, it's not about getting the highest value. Okay, my job is to get a seller the highest after tax proceeds.
Got it.
So we need to negotiate, know exactly what your cash number is, and then also, depending on the form of consideration, buyers are going to have different types of consideration. Maybe someone's going to pay 100% cash, or maybe someone's going to say, I want to do an earnout, or maybe someone says, I want to do milestone payments.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very important that if you're going to do something like that, like a milestone payment, that it's not considered compensation where you're taxed on an ordinary income tax basis instead of capital gains. So all these things, before anybody gets to that letter of intent and they're giving us bids and we say, what is your form of consideration? We're going to review all those, and we're going to pick the best one that has the best after-tax proceeds for the company and the highest certainty that it's going to close. And so
And
that's when
go
I would
back,
get somebody involved.
right, and you bring it back to the cash value, right? That that
Abs-
business
Absolutely.
owner has dreamed about, right?
Exactly,
In order
exactly.
to go on and build another business.
Right. And then, then the M&A attorney comes in to help with the reps and warranties and any kind of exposure. And that's critical at that point. But that's not until you know that this is, what we're doing is we're vetting the buyer so that, you know, the seller is running their company.
Yep.
This is how it should be done. They shouldn't be distracted. This is a very time-consuming process. They're running their company, they're making their numbers, they're running, and we're doing interference with the buyers and negotiating everything and weeding out the people that aren't going to be the ones doing the highest bidding.